this part, I want to go over the remix full stack cycle because this is actually what I'm going to give a talk about in my meetup talk that will be June 25th on Tuesday. And that will be at a local meetup. Essentially, you guys get it first in a very raw manner because I'm still kind of fleshing this out to kind of see what's the best way to deliver it. I don't think always code is the best delivery, but I really want people to understand more of Remix and how easy it is to adopt if you have the moment to kind of like think about it for a second. So you can actually find this in the documentation for Remix. And Remix kind of it's a considered a discussion topic if you go to their documentation, and they explain their full stack cycle, like what's the best way that you can use their framework. And it wants you to conceptually think about it this way, where you start off with first with a loader, or depending on you, because depending on how much information you needed to get into a component, you start with a loader function that hits any APIs or a database of anything that you need in order to get information into your component. Goes through the component. Your component can look like anything from a form, and then go through the action. The action is essentially what would be hit if you were to use a form. In this example of a component is a form. And then when you have a submission process, you would press a submit and it would hit that action function. We've been doing a lot of this for this form. In the first half of the series, when I started live streaming, I was working on a Remix project that was pretty much me just pulling data out, that static data, but I had to use a loader to get everything in. And he was using loader and component until it was time for me to start reaching into an API outside of my project, until it was time for me to kind of gauge how to get more information based off of user inputs. That's when I started to realize I wanted to go to a different project to get this done, because there was some limitations that I had in terms of UI components. I didn't want to do UI components that were limited or I'd have to build from scratch. And so that's why I wanted to move to a new project and separate the two. So in regards to the Remix full stack cycle, so as we've been using it in the new Remix, in the old Remix project, or I should say the series website project, I say old because it just was the first one, and I need to go back and start maintaining that properly as well, so that we can update things in terms of accessibility and more. So when it comes to using loaders in Remix, you use loaders in two manners, using two different hooks, either using use loader data or use fetcher. Depending on what path you need to take in terms if you need to navigate from a different route or you need to stay on the same page but still get data, you would determine on which path case you want to take. And I've done slides in I want to say the last live stream. I think it was the last live stream where I talked about using the use fetcher hook, because I had to use that 3 times to finish out my form to get ideally what I was needing. So in that process, with those hooks and using a loader function is what we would use in the first half of trying to get information loaded into our component. Now, if you were to use the component part, you're using either a form component or a fetcher.form, which naturally comes from use fetcher. So also 2 separate things if you need them to be separate. And so this is the component part of where either you've got dummy components that just, have data in them, or you've got components that are actually going to be doing some action. And then that's when you get into the next part. So whenever you hit an action function on the side of being able to get it from when you're submitting data to a different endpoint, post, get, put, what you need, then whatever you return on that action function gets returned from the use action data hook. And so a lot of these have been already kind of built in with React Router, and Remix just is a wrapper around this in order to get this done. And so I think last live stream, now I remember, I didn't talk about use fetcher in the last live stream. I talked about use fetcher in the stream before that. And then the last live stream, I talked about the different changes that were going to come about within Remix, and the fact that Remix was going to not separate, but React Router and Remix were going to merge in terms of React Router picking up what Remix had built and along the way. And you would no longer be importing things from just Remix, but importing things from React Router.